Well, y'all know who it is. It's your favorite bean-eating mofo, fresh off the banana boat. Big Lou, tapping back in with what it do with Big Lou, NFZR2. Sorry about this live. I kept changing the time on it all day. I was in a coma. Excuse me. And so I kept changing the channel the time because I was I didn't get much sleep last night, and so I got a lot of sleep today during the day. So I knocked out a couple lives. This was the third one. So this is going to be a continuance from my series on true American heroes, true men of valor. You know, true men of valor that have received numerous hardware, right? Which are medals. Distinguished men of valor. So this is the 65th Infantry Regiment, right? Nicknamed the Borinqueniers. Okay, so let me give you a little history. The Puerto Ricans, when you join the military from the island of Puerto Rico, you are joining the United States military, armed forces. So whatever branch you go into, if it's Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, it's still the United States, right? Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. Okay, Puerto Rico, which means rich port, was renamed by the Spaniards when the Spaniards conquered Puerto Rico. Originally, it was called Borinquen, and that's where you get the word Boricua from. Technically, if you're born here in the United States and you're of Puerto Rican descent, you're not really, technically they say you're not really Boricua, but Puerto Ricans are such proud people that you're going to hear that all the time, Boricua, right? So it was called Borinquen originally, and that's where they get the 65th Infantry Regiment is nicknamed Borinqueniers, right? And it even says it here in the literature for the original Taino Indian native indigenous people of Puerto Rico. Name of the island was Borinquen. So these guys were badass in a badass regiment in Korea in the Korean War in the 50s, right? United States Army. They're a regiment in the United States Army. The regiment's motto is honor et fidelitas, Latin for honor and fidelity. The Army Appropriation Bill, created by an act of Congress on March 2nd, 1899, authorized the creation of the first body of native troops in Puerto Rico. On June 30th, 1901, the Puerto Rico Provisional Regiment of Infantry was organized. On July 1st, 1908, Congress incorporated the regiment into the regular army as the Puerto Rico Regiment of Infantry, United States Army. On May 14th, 1917, the regiment was activated and additional men were assigned, with the unit being sent to serve at Panama. On June 4th, 1920, the regiment was renamed 65th Infantry. During World War II, the regiment saw action throughout Europe, especially France and Germany, participating in Naples, Foggia, Rome, Arno, and Rennes. Several Purple Hearts were awarded to members of the 65th Regiment. Purple Hearts. What's up, Nunzio? Imagine that. Purple Hearts. So, as I already mentioned, it was founded in 1899 through 1956, and then I guess 57, 58, they weren't active, and then 59 on up till today. So yeah, as you know, in the United States, right, the branch of military United States Army. They're infantry. They're special designation regiment, right? They're involved in World War I, World War II, Korean War. But in World War II, like I already named, they were involved in Naples, Foggia, Central Europe, Battle of the Rhineland, excuse me. Again, and then the Korean War, Operation Killer, Battle of Sherwan, Jackson Heights, and Outpost Kelly. The notable commanders were Colonel Antulio Segarra, Colonel Juan Cesar Cordero Davila, and they have an insignia, distinctive unit insignia, where it's a shield, black in color with a gold border, and it's like a 4-point cross kind of with double ends, and then it has the motto "Honor et Fidelitas." So, like I said, they participated. The 65th Regiment participated in World War I, II, the Korean War, and the Global War on Terrorism. On June 10th, 2014, the 65th Regiment was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. Puerto Ricans have participated in many of the military conflicts in which the United States has been involved, right? So here's some examples I'll give you guys. They participated in the American Revolutionary War, when volunteers from Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Mexico enlisted in the Spanish Army in 1779, excuse me, and they fought under the command of General Bernardo de Galvez. And they've continued to participate up to the present day. Conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? Puerto Rico became a U.S. territory after the Treaty of Paris in 1898, which ended the Spanish-American War. So that's when Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines got their independence of Spain in 1898, the Spanish-American War. The U.S. then appointed military governors, and soon the U.S. Army established itself in San Juan. So on March 2nd, 1899, the Army received what is that? Can't read my writing. They received a assignation of funds and authorization meant to formally organize troops in Puerto Rico. So on March 24th, 1899, the general commander of the Puerto Rico Department, Major General Guy V. Henry, ordered creation of the Puerto Rico Battalion of Volunteer Infantry, formed by 4 companies named A through D, and assigned to San Juan, Mayagüez, and Ponce. The unit was activated on May 20th, 1899, led by Major Lorenzo Davinson, actually in English. Shortly afterwards, each company received additional men for a total of about 112. I can't even read that name, but hello. Mayor Eben Swift replaced Davidson as commander. The formalization of this move was notified in General Order 65, issued by the new General Commander, General George Davis. On February 12, 1900, the Mounted Battalion was organized, and both were later designated Puerto Rico Regiment, U.S. Volunteers. The following year, the units were renamed Puerto Rico Provisional Regiment of Infantry. The band and 1st Battalion were sent to Washington on the 4th of March, 1901 to participate in the inauguration of McKinley. July 1st, 1901, the United States Senate passed a bill which would require a strict mental and physical examination for those who wanted to join the regiment. It also approved the recruitment of native Puerto Rican civilians to be appointed the grade of 2nd lieutenants for a term of 4 years if they passed the required tests. And then fast forward a bit to April 23rd, 1904, Congress authorized the recruitment of the local population as second lieutenants, leading to the recognition of Jaime Nadal, Henry Rexach, Pedro Parra, Eduardo Iriarte, Teofilo Marxuich, Eugenio Maria de Tostos, Luis Emanuele, and Pascual Lopez. In 1905, one of its battalions was sent to march along the a brigade of the 1st Division of regular American Army during Roosevelt's inauguration. An act of Congress approved May 27, 1908, reorganized the regiment as part of the regular army, and the Puerto Rico Provisional Regiment of Infantry was renamed Puerto Rico Regiment of Infantry. Since the native Puerto Rican officers were Puerto Rican citizens and not citizens of the U.S., they were required to undergo a new physical examination to determine their fitness for commissions in the regular army, and they had to take an oath of U.S. citizenship with their new officer's oath. By January 30th, 1917, the Puerto Rico Regiment of Infantry was training in Camp Las Casas, which was located in Santurce, a section of San Juan in what is now Residencial de las Casitas. So World War I. So we're going to talk about World War I now. Different units of the regiment were stationed at other forts throughout the island under the command of William P. Burnham, Lieutenant Teofilo Markowitz. The officer of the day was stationed at El Morro Castle at the San Juan Bay on March 21st, 1915. The Oldenwald, built in 1903, not to be confused with the German World War II warship, which carried the same name, was an armed German supply ship which tried to force its way out of the San Juan Bay and deliver supplies to the German submarines waiting in the Atlantic Ocean. Marchwich gave the order to open fire on the ship from the walls of the fort. Sergeant Encarnacion Correa then manned a machine gun and fired warning shots with little effect. Marchwich fired a warning shot from a cannon located at the Santa Rosa battery of El Morro Fort, in what is considered to be the first shot of World War I fired by the regular armed forces of the U.S. against a ship flying the colors of the Central Powers, forcing the Oldenwald to stop and to return to a port where supplies were confiscated. Oldenwald was confiscated by the U.S. and renamed SS Newport News. It was assigned to the U.S. Shipping Board, where it served until 1924 when it was retired. Excuse me. Puerto Ricans were unaccustomed to the racial segregation policies of the U.S., which were also implemented in Puerto Rico, and often refused to designate themselves as black or white. Puerto Ricans of African descent were assigned to the all-black units in 1916. The 3rd Battalion and the companies of service and machine guns were integrated into the regiment. When the U.S. declared war against Germany, the regiment was transferred to the regular army, and on May 3rd, 1917, recruited almost 2,000 men, considered at the time as war strength. On May 14, 1917, the regiment was sent to Panama in the defense of the Panama Canal Zone. The regiment returned to Puerto Rico in March of 1919 and was renamed the 65th Regiment by the Reorganization Act of June 4, 1920. During this period, a young Puerto Rican officer of the regular army, Major Luis R. Estevez, was sent to Camp Las Casas to serve as an instructor in the preparation of Puerto Rican officers. In the future, Estevez would become known as the father of the Puerto Rican National Guard. In 1923, The 65th provided personnel to the newly created 42nd Regiment, 42nd Infantry Regiment, excuse me. So we're gonna talk about World War II. In 1942, 65th Regiment underwent an extensive training program, and in 1943, it was sent to Panama to protect the Pacific and Atlantic sides of the let's see how you say this, Isthmus. On November 25th, 1943, Colonel Antulio Segarra succeeded Colonel John R. Manaclinhall as commander of the 65th Infantry, thus becoming the first Puerto Rican regular Army officer to command a regular Army regiment. In January 1944, the regiment was embarked for Jackson Barracks in New Orleans and later sent to Fort Ulysses in Newport News, Virginia, in preparation for overseas deployment to North Africa. So these are some of the individual awards they won in World War II. 2 silver stars, 22 bronze stars, and 90 purple hearts. Imagine that. Thanks, Rick. They also served in Casablanca, right after the naval battle of Casablanca, where the regiment underwent amphibious training, and this enabled the 3rd Battalion to move on to Corsica, right, where it was attached to the 12th Air Force and tasked with guarding airfields. Between March and April 1944, the 65th Regiment was reassigned to North Africa. On May 3rd, 1944, the 3rd Battalion arrived at Naples, or actually not Naples, Napolis. The battalion was then moved to Corsica and then to France, right? Salvador Roig commanded the 65th during this period in Europe, which earned him the Combat Infantryman badge. During this time, rumors swirled that the regiment would be sent to live combat, while officers had already been moved to act as observers. September 22nd, 1944, the 65th Infantry landed in France. The regiment was then moved to Piracava in the Maritime Alps, where it entered in action on December 13, 1944. This was the first time a Puerto Rican unit saw action in Europe. The first offensive attack came the following day in response to enemy fire with Lieutenant Colonel Juan Cesar Cordero Davila, allowing Captain Efrain Sanchez Hidalgo and Company L to return fire. In November 1944, Company C provided security to the headquarters of the 7th U.S. Army. The rest of the 1st Battalion was assigned other tasks, such as defending the command center of the 6th United States Army Group. The 2nd and 3rd Battalions were assigned to defend communications. In 1948, 7 members received the Bronze Star for their service in World War II. On December 13, 1944, the 65th Regiment, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Cordero Davila, relieved the 2nd Battalion of the 442nd Infantry Regiment, a regiment which was made up of Japanese Americans under the command of Colonel Virgil R. Miller, a native of San Herman, Puerto Rico, and former member of the 65th Regiment. So not only were these guys started, a lot of these guys started out as members, soldiers in the 65th Regiment. They became officers, and then they started leading different regiments, different battalions, as Colonel Virgil R. Miller did. In December of 44, the 3rd Battalion faced the German 34th Infantry Division, 107th Grenadier Regiment. They suffered a total of 47 battle casualties. The first 2 Puerto Ricans to be killed in action from the 65th Infantry were Private Sergio Sanchez and Sergeant Angel Martinez from the town of Sabana Grande. Upon arriving in the freezing and isolated outposts in Maritime Alps, the unit's morale dropped severely. In an apparent effort to boost the unit's morale, its new commander, West Pointer Colonel George A. Ford, personally led a patrol towards the German lines on January 4, 1945. Upon reaching the forward German outpost, Colonel Ford was immediately shot and killed. In the firefight that followed, one of the enlisted men already mentioned was killed, and several others were wounded, forcing the patrol to abandon the colonel's body. On March 18, 1945, the regiment was sent to the district of Mannheim, Germany, and assigned to military government activities, anti-sabotage, and security missions. In all, the 65th Regiment participated in the campaigns of Rome, Arno, Rhineland, Ardennes, Salasay, and Central Europe. On October 27, 1945, the regiment sailed from France, arriving at Puerto Rico on November 9, 1945. Operation Porrex. The 65th Infantry Regiment distinguished itself from the United States, conducted a military exercise on the island of Vieques. So Vieques is a little island just near Puerto Rico, and that's where they're known for doing the bombing missions way back. They would do a lot of bombing exercises there. On the eve of the Korean War, this exercise was codenamed Operation Port Rex, an acronym for Puerto Rico Exercise. The objective was to see how combined forces of the Army, Marines, Navy, and Air Force would do as liberators of an enemy captured territory, Vieques, against the aggressors. The core of the aggressor ground forces were made up of Puerto Rican soldiers, most of whom belonged to the 65th Regiment. The liberators consisted of 32,600 combat troops from the 82nd Airborne Division, 82nd Airborne Division's 504th Airborne Infantry Regiment, and the Marine Corps, who received support from the Navy and Air Force. Despite the large number of troops deployed, the 65th Infantry, the aggressors, were able to halt the offensive forces on the beaches of the island. Colonel William H. Harris, the commanding officer of the 65th, stated, "Stopping the assault forces at the water's edge proved that the Puerto Ricans could hold their own against the best trained soldiers that the United States Army could put into the field. The successful military maneuvers during Port Rex prompted the Army's leadership to deploy the 65th Infantry to Korea." So now we're going to speak on Korea, right? So on August 27, 1950, the 65th Infantry, with almost 4,000 officers and men, organized into 3 infantry battalions, 1 artillery battalion, and a tank company, departed from Puerto Rico and arrived in Busan, South Korea on September 23, 1950. It was during the long sea voyage that the men nicknamed the 65th Infantry as the Buccaneers. That was the name of the more peaceful of the 2 original native indigenous tribes that inhabited the island of Puerto Rico, Borinquen, and many of the men were direct descendants of that industrious race of people. The men of the 65th, now attached to the Army's 3rd Infantry Division, were among the first infantrymen to meet the enemy on battlefields of Korea. After November of 1950, said that they fought daily against units of the Chinese People's Liberation Army after the Chinese entered the war on the North Korean side. The 296th Regiment took its place at Puerto Rico. In Korea, the regiment covered the retreat of the 1st Marine Division during the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, or Chosin Reservoir. One of the hardships suffered by the Puerto Ricans was the lack of warm clothing during the war, during the cold, harsh winters. Born in a semi-tropical climate, most of them had never seen snow. They had lived and fought through it all without complaint. That's for sure. Just chilling. Let's see. The enemy made many attempts to encircle the regiment, but each time they failed because of the many casualties inflicted by the 65th Regiment Infantry, because the 65th held their positions. That enabled the U.S. Marines to withdraw from the chosen reservoir in December of 50. When the Marines were surrounded by the Chinese Communist troops close to the Manchurian border, they were ordered to retreat and work their way back to Hungnam, and the men of the 65th rushed to their defenses and were ordered to stay behind to fight the enemy. As a result, the Marines were able to withdraw to their ships, with the 65th holding the rear guard. The 65th, attached to the 1st Marine Division, was awarded the Navy Unit Commendation for their defense, and were among the last units to embark from Hungnam. Among the battles and operations in which the 65th participated was Operation Killer in January of 51, becoming the first regiment to cross the Han River in South Korea during the operation. In April of 51, the regiment participated in the Ujambu corridor drives, and in June of 51, the 65th was the third regiment to cross the Hantan River. The 65th took and held Chorwan, and they also instrumental in breaking the Iron Triangle of Hill 717 in July of 1951. In November of 1951, the regiment fought off an attack by two regimental-sized enemy units. Colonel Juan Cesar Cordero Davila of the 296th Regiment requested a transfer to active services in Korea. In December of 51, Chief of Staff J. Lawton Collins visited Puerto Rico and granted the request, reassigning him to the 65th, replacing him with Lieutenant Colonel Sepulveda. Colonel Cordero was formally named commander of the 65th Infantry on February 8, 1952, thus becoming one of the highest-ranking ethnic officers in the Army. Brigadier William Warner Harris, USMA 1930, published a book that captured the distinguished history of the 65th while under his command. When asked if the Puerto Ricans would fight when the time came, then Colonel William Warner Harris answered just as direct: "My Puerto Ricans will fight anyone, anywhere." Battles of Outpost Kelly and Jackson Heights. July 3rd, 1952, the regiment defended the mainland of resistance, MLR, for 47 days and saw action at Cognac, King, and Queen, with successful attacks on Chinese positions. In September of 52, the 65th Regiment defended a hill known as Outpost Kelly. Chinese Communist forces overran the hill in what became known as the Battle of Outpost Kelly. On two occasions, the 65th Regiment was overwhelmed by Chinese artillery and driven off. In October of 52, the regiment also saw action in the Chorwan sector and on Iron Horse Hill 391, whose lower part was called Jackson Heights in honor of Captain George Jackson. Colonel Carlos Betances Ramirez, Company G of the 65th, fought a desperate battle to hold on to Hill 391. After enduring days of artillery bombardment with limited artillery support of their own, Company G withdrew to avoid being overrun by a numerically superior foe. In June of 53, the 2nd Battalion conducted a series of successful raids about 2.5 miles southeast of Jackson Heights, and in November, the regiment successfully counterattacked enemy units in the Namsang Valley and held their positions until the armistice was reached. Many non-Puerto Rican Hispanics served in the 65th Infantry during the war. Among those who distinguished themselves in combat and who served in the conflict as a member of the 65th Infantry, was a young first lieutenant of Mexican American descent, whose name is Richard Edward Cavazos. Cavazos entered the military in Texas and served as company commander of Company E of the 2nd Battalion. Cavazos, who in 1982 became the first Hispanic to become a 4-star general in the United States Army, was the recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star Medal, and the Bronze Star Medal. Okay, let's see what happened here. So their awards in Korea: Master Sergeant Juan Negron was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for his courageous actions while serving as a member of Company L, 65th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division during combat operations against an armed enemy in Kalma, Erie, Korea on April 28, 1951. His award was upgraded to Medal of Honor on March 18, 2014. A total of 61,000 Puerto Ricans served in the military during the Korean War, and around 90% of the Puerto Ricans that saw action in Korea were volunteers. The 65th Infantry was awarded battle participation credits for the following 9 campaigns: UN Defense 1950, UN Defense 1950, CCF Intervention 1950, First UN Counterattack Offensive 1950, UN and CCF Spring Offensive 1951, UN Fall Offense 1951, Second Korean Winter 51-52, Korean Summer Fall 52, Third Korean Winter 52-53. They all credited with the last battalion seized, but Bay in charge in the U.S. Army history. So there was 1 Medal of Honor given out. There was 10 Distinguished Service Crosses given out. There was 256 Silver Stars given out. There was 606 Bronze Stars given out. And look at this one. There was 2,771 Purple Hearts given out. Yeah, I got the community tab. I ain't messed with it yet. I'm going to start messing with that and figure that out. The Purple Hearts. So 2,771 Puerto Ricans were given, members of the 65th Regiment were given Purple Hearts, real Purple Hearts recipients, not like some fake ass chump that likes to run his fucking mouth behind his fucking screen. You know what I mean? 10 Distinguished Service Crosses, right? I already said all that. Sergeant First Class Modesto Cartagena. So I had him on the thumbnail from the very first, when I started this series of True American Heroes. He was on the thumbnail, but on the video I spoke of the Puerto Rican Rambo, Sergeant First Class Otero Barreto. Private Badeo Hernandez Guzman. Master Sergeant Juani Negron. Corporal Fabian Nieves. Master Sergeant Noriega. According to a Nuevo Dia newspaper, May 30th, 2004, a total of 756 Puerto Ricans were killed in Korea from all 4 branches of the U.S. Armed Forces. However, according to all POW MIA Korean War casualties, the total number of Puerto Rican casualties in the Korean War was 732. However, this total may vary slightly since some non-Puerto Ricans, such as Captain James W. Connor, were mistakenly included. Out of the 700 plus casualties suffered in the war, a total of 121 men were listed as missing in action. The Battle of Outpost Kelly counted for 73 of the men missing in action from the total of the 121. Out of the 73 MIAs suffered by the regiment in September of 52, 50 of them occurred on the same day, September 18th. For a list of names, Yeah, that's too many names to go through. I didn't write. Obviously, I didn't write those down, but it's just too many. Post-Korean War, General Richard Cavazos, the first Mexican American to reach the rank of brigadier general in the U.S. Army. The 65th Infantry was relieved from assignment from the 3rd Infantry Division on November 3rd, 1954, and returning to Puerto Rico. It was assigned on December 2nd, 54, to the 23rd Infantry Division, which encompassed geographically separated units in the Caribbean region. On April 10, 1956, it was inactivated at Losey Field, Puerto Rico, and relieved from assignment to the 23rd, which itself was inactivated. So, like I mentioned, Sergeant First Class Modesto Cartagena, he's the most decorated Latino U.S. soldier in the Korean War. On February 6, 1959, the regiment was deactivated from the regular army, but the Puerto Rican Army National Guard soon adopted 65th as the identifying number for their existing 296 Regimental Combat Team at Losey Field, mainly composed of reserve personnel. I couldn't read my words. Sorry about that. February 15, 1959, it was organized to consist of the 1st Battle Group, 65th Regiment, and an element of the 92nd Infantry Brigade. On February 21st, 1960, as the National Guard Day, the 65th Infantry Regiment was formally transferred from the regular army to the PRNG in an activity where General Cesar Cordero handed the unit's colors to Colonel Rafael Rodriguez. That same year, Company B of the 65th Regiment created Employers Day, Dia del Patrono in Spanish, where the employers of the volunteers that served in the PRNG are instructed about the job that their employees do with the entity and participate in training of their own. So it was reorganized in May of 64 to consist of the 1st Battalion, 65th Infantry, and remain assigned to the 92nd. It was reorganized again on April 1st, 1971 to consist of the 1st Battalion and separate Company E. This was followed by another reorganization on September 1st, 1978 to consist of the 1st and 2nd Battalions within the 92nd, as well as separate Company E. Less than 2 years later, another reorganization on February 29, 1980, eliminated the separate Company E while retaining the 1st and 2nd Battalions. So they went through a lot of reorganizing over and over and over again. The separate Company E was a Ranger unit given federal recognition effective April 1st, 71, and had a total authorized strength of almost 200 personnel. It was added to the PRARNG on that date, while the 755th Transportation Company was deleted. Company E Ranger 65th Infantry relocated from Vega Baja to San Juan on February 2nd, 76. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 21st century. The 65th Infantry Regiment's 1st Battalion, along with its sister battalion, the 296th Infantry, was transferred to the 92nd Infantry Brigade, PRARNG, now the 92nd Maneuver Enhancement Brigade. Those battalions have served in what the United States Department of Defense calls the Global War on Terrorism, as well as the Iraq War. In 2009, Company C, 1st Battalion, 65th Infantry Regiment was deployed to the Horn of Africa and stationed at Camp Lemonnier after completing a 14-month deployment at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Company C carried the crew, served weapons to protect the camp. It also operated the entry control checkpoints, protected U.S. and Allied ships at the massive ports, and guarded the U.S. Embassy there. By mid-2009, the rest of the battalion deployed there in case a larger combat maneuver element was needed, right, to operate from the base. The area is considered to be the most unstable part of Africa, and the Somali border is less than 10 miles. So the legacy of the 65th Infantry Regiment, right? They got a monument dedicated to them in Rio Piedras, Puerto Rico. And during the Korean War, the Borinqueniers were awarded 10 Distinguished Service Crosses. Okay, I've already spoke about those. Puerto Rico honored the unit by naming one of its principal avenues, Avenida 65, de Infanteria in San Juan. The names of those killed in combat are inscribed in the Monumento de la Recordación, which means Monument of Remembrance, which was unveiled on May 19, 1996, and situated in front of the Capitol building in San Juan. In November 99, Governor Pedro Rosello, along with the Senate of Puerto Rico, chartered the 65th Infantry Honor Task Force and appointed Anthony Mele as chairman to work with Major General Nels, running director committee of the 50th anniversary of the Korean War to commemorate the 65th Infantry Regiment. That was cool. So they made a document about these guys in 2007. It aired on PBS. It's called The Borinqueniers, and it's a documentary about the 65th Infantry, right? Written and directed by Noemi Figueroa and Raquel Ortiz as co-director. The narrators were Hector Elizondo in English and David Ortiz Anglero in Spanish. If you guys don't know who Hector Elizondo is, he's been in many shows. He's in that last show that Tim Allen made, Third Rock, or what is it called? Something like that. He's the boss. He's his boss in the job. He also was in Beverly Hills Cop. He looks white, but he's of Puerto Rican descent. Let's see. There's a stretch in the South Bronx, Southern Boulevard. The entire stretch of Southern Boulevard in the Bronx, New York, was codenamed La 65th Infanteria Boulevard. Let's see. On October 1st, 2013, the 65th Infantry Honor Task Force organized veterans from the 65th and their families to attend a salute to the regiment by the 3rd U.S. Infantry, the Old Guard, at Fort Myer, Virginia. A tour of the tomb of the unknown soldiers and wreath-laying ceremony at the Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. On March 22nd and 23rd of 2014, the 65th Infantry Honor Task Force organized a salute of the first Medal of Honor awarded to Borinquenier MSG Juan E. Negron in New York, with Iris Negron, daughter of MS Master Sergeant Negron, and Brigadier General Jose Burgos. In attendance were New York State Senators William E. Larkin and Korean War combat veteran. So that the United States Senator, the New York State Senator William E. Larkin was a Korean War combat veteran, and David Carlucci, who represented a proclamation from the New York State Senate. In 2014, the National Puerto Rican Day Parade, which is attended by nearly 2 million people, broadcast live on Fox TV and was dedicated to the Borinqueniers. Also on May 25th, 2018, the city of Springfield, Mass. Unveiled 65th Infantry Way. On December 13, 2019, U.S. President Donald Trump signed into law the H.R. 2325 legislation to designate the facility of the United States Postal Service, located at 100 Calle La Hondra in San Juan, Puerto Rico, as a 65th Infantry Regiment Post Office building. On January 27, 2020, an entry gate, Fort Buchanan in Puerto Rico, was officially renamed the Borinqueniers Gate in honor of the 65th Infantry. In early 2021, a law was signed to make April 13th National Day of Borinqueniers so that veterans could commemorate the service of the Buccaneers. April 13 was chosen because it was the day when members of the unit received a Congressional Gold Medal in 2016. So they got a Congressional Gold Medal too. Is award bestowed by the United States Congress and is, along with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the U.S. It is awarded to persons who have performed an achievement that has an impact on American history and culture that is likely to be recognized as a major achievement in the recipient's long field after the achievement. While a civilian award generally recognizes single individuals, politicians, scientists, actors, military heroes, civilian heroes, and others. That's these guys are, you know what I mean? The long, rich history of these guys from the 65th Infantry date back, World War One, World War Two, Korean War. You know what I mean? I think during Vietnam War they're deactivated the unit, but then they fired back up, and they're around still to this day. No, his first name is Modesto. His name is Modesto Cartagena. No, he's not from Modesto. He's from Puerto Rico. But his first name is Modesto. Yeah, they said majority of them were volunteers. So imagine that, going to war, not even getting paid, and still fighting fighting with your life, to defend Constitution, defend your country. You know what I mean? That's awesome. You know what I'm saying? That's the definition of a true hero. With all these distinguished medals that they received, all these real Purple Heart recipients. You know what I mean? That's what's up. But I appreciate all you guys for stopping in. This video, I was trying to get it out all day. I was just not feeling it all day, and I kept changing the time. Hour, then an hour, then an hour, then 2 hours, and two. I think I was supposed to go on this video at like 11:30 this morning, the original time, and I'm getting it done. I came on at 10 something instead. So, I apologize if anybody was coming to it. Nonetheless, I appreciate you guys coming in, watching it, and I appreciate everybody that's going to come later and watch it. Yeah. Well, excuse me. My plan was to do that too, but then I started getting in trouble. I planned on going to the military when I was a kid, but then when I was a youngster, but then I got in trouble and it was a wrap. You know what I mean? Once I get the felony, it was over with by that time. But yeah, just chilling. Vegas prison stories. Nunzio. I don't even know what this is. Golami. Thanks. I appreciate you guys stopping in, listening to me. I wrote down a lot of different things, and then I ended up writing it down a few things a couple of different times. So I had to, but I appreciate everybody's patience on this video. And I appreciate you guys spending time here. And like I said, everybody that will watch it, I appreciate everybody. And if you haven't already, sub to the channel. It'd be highly appreciated if you did so. Sub, like, and share the channel with your family, friends, peoples, gente, camaradas, comrades, buddies, pals, associates, asocios, amigos, panas, whatever word you use in your vocabulary to, to describe somebody that's close to you, then use that word. That being said, Big Lou tapping out. Yeah, you stay up too, brother. God bless. Bendiciones a ti en la familia. And Big Lou tapping out.